Hey everyone, I'm going to talk about creating an interesting bed of droning tracks today. How I'm going to go about doing this is using this Fulltone Tape Echo. On the floor I have a Keeley Comperssor and I have an Electro-Harmonix Freeze Pedal. So between these three devices and the volume knob on this Fender Stratocaster, I'm going to create a whole bed of tracks that all together are going to be automated and almost create like an orchestra of ambient sounds. How I'm doing this is basically the Keeley pedal, the compressor. I'm just using that to get some sustain because I'm playing completely clean. So to get some sustain out of the guitar, I have the compressor on pretty hot. So it just, when I play a note or swell a note in, it just grabs it. Now the freeze pedal I use sometimes. If you know what the freeze pedal does, is it grabs just a minuscule snapshot of your tone and just holds it like a drone. Right? It almost kind of gets like an organy type sound to it when you grab a note or a chord. I'm just going to be grabbing notes because I'm going to create chords, right? So we have three chords that I'm going to be arranging feedback loops for here. So I'm going to lay out feedback loops for three different chords, and from there I'm going to automate them in and out. So that means for a G chord, I'm going to lay out the root, third, fifth, and octave. And I'm also going to do that for a C chord and a D chord. After I get all that done, I'm going to go through and I'm going to automate the intervals. So when the chords change, whenever I need them to change, the feedback loops will change. In Logic, what I did was I set up a bunch of tracks that you'll be able to see here, and I labeled it what note and what interval it's going to be. I'm using an amp simulator on the main track to get the sound, and that is this soft tube vintage amp room. To prevent myself from having like 30 instances of this plugin open, I got the sound I really wanted on this first track here that the guitar is going into from my Avid M-Box. From there, I set the output of the track to bus 1. So each of these following tracks that I set up for the root, third, fifth octave are all going to be set to the input of bus 1, meaning that it's going to record the sound that's coming out of this first track. And I don't have to have multiple instances of vintage amp room open. Saves some CPU juice. Let me give you an example of how I'm going to do this. I'm going to set up an 8-bar loop. Let me explain what each of these components do. So the freeze pedal, watch what happens when I hit a note, and I grab it with the freeze, my hands are free, you hear how it's sustaining that note. A little reedy, organish. The delay, you hear it doing all kind of warbly, weird things and distorting, right? I might do a combination of these two. So I might get something cool happening with the freeze pedal. And I'm going to set it up, now I'm going to do the third, which is a B note, or a G chord. Okay. I'm going to follow this through with each interval that I want to add to the chord. The fifth, and I might actually change some of the delay settings up here, the times. Okay, if I just wanted to listen back to this chord. I wanted to hear all the tracks together that I just recorded. Just to create a 4-bar loop out of the 8-bar loop that I'm just going to have cycle over and over again. We're going to work from there. It's not completely smoothed out yet, but we're just starting to get the idea together. You kind of just really hear that it's kind of just a collage of interesting tones and textures. As you'll notice, I recorded a bunch of tracks here, and there's some automation on them because I was messing around with moving some of the notes around. Let's first listen to the notes that would just be in a straight G chord playing. If I soloed any one of these, you'd hear root, third, fifth, octave, right? Same thing for the C chord. And I have a D chord over here too as well. Now this is different than using a keyboard to create chords with samples on it, because what's unique about this is each one of these loop setters recorded has some inconsistencies in it or imperfections, which makes them rub against each other in a different way. There's different overtones, there's different speeds that the tape or the echoes are repeating themselves, and when you combine them together, it's just it creates a little bit more of a imperfect industrial kind of ambient sound than just using like a synth pad. Where it really gets fun is if we pull up a section of the song and I'm going to set up like a G chord here, and I'm going to show you a few things that like we can turn it into other chords. Here's our G chord with our third. I can very easily turn this into a G sus. G sus 4 there, right? Bring the third back in. You can turn it into a major 7th by adding the F sharp, which is the third of the D chord, in. You can turn that into a 9th chord, adding the A in. 6th chord. So there's a lot of options if you know music theory that you can play this like an instrument.